Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Parvez. Ji, alhamdulillah. Thank you for joining in earlier. I had actually requested the staff of Copair to kind of, also request the speakers if they could come earlier, because how I would like to conduct this session. So it'll be primarily bilingual, as they said, and just the fact that I would be, since you're a water expert and you have a lot of experience, of course, on climate change, etc. So I would like to kind of pose a couple of questions that I just wanted to kind of flag before we start the session. The first one is, of course, which will be to the entire panel, is that how is governance linked to climate change and how it kind of exacerbates the risk, and then, of course, right now I read on internet that CNN has reported that water will recede in another 6 months. That's a very big time period. So what kind of measures are missing or could have been in place that could have mitigated this kind of a threat and this kind of, disaster? So it will be largely on the policy side. And then maybe also you could comment on what kind of compensation could we demand from the international community besides or beyond GCF and Adaptation Fund? Do we need to change the framework? Do we need to, what kind of demands can we go to ICJ, for example? Because there's a lot of, talk about reparation and stuff like that. So how can we kind of tap into that? So these are some of the questions. If you want me to add something, please let me know. Otherwise, these are some of those questions that I would request you to dwell upon.
I think these are fair questions, no problem from my side. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Dr. And I see someone else has joined. It's Noman Zubair, it says.
It's Noreen Heather.
Noreen, this is Momi Salim. I work on environment. Hi, nice to meet you. So for you again, I mean, as climate activist, I would like to kind of ask you, what are the main reasons for this flood, maybe? Because right now there's also talk about glacier melt, and only in 2022 we have had 16 events of glacier melt, and we have seen in Gilgit-Baltistan, for example, what kind of issues have come about. So we had this right before the floods. We had this kind of devastation in GB. So just to get a sense of what are the main reasons for this, how it is different from 2010, and also if you could shed light on again, policy level, what was missing, why didn't we do anything, could we have done anything, first of all, So I'll be asking you that, and then maybe but the first question that I discussed with Dr. Saab as well is that how is governance linked to climate change? So maybe I would like each of the speakers to really talk about.
Definitely.
Gigi. So this will be the first opening question to all the speakers.
I think this is perhaps the most relevant and most important question. Gigi. And you have selected some of the best questions. I think this is the most important topic, and these are the most important questions that everybody would be asking and the policymakers would be answering. This is it. There is no other question. How is governance related to all of this? This is the question.
Yeah, indeed. Parvez Saab, of course, we know you very well. Like, I just wanted to kind of say that I'll just introduce you as water expert. Is that what it is? Could you tell me also the affiliation right now, association?
I'm currently with the Global Water Partnership, and I'm also a former member of the Prime Minister's Task Force on Climate Change.
And Noreen, how are you? Where are you working?
I'm now working from the platform of my own organization, but I have worked for 18 years as a development consultant for various aid organizations, including World Bank, Asian Development Bank, and many other SRSP. I've been working as the communication specialist for SRSP till today. And in this development sector, my thrust was on disaster management, climate change, and disaster risk reduction, DRR. I've been giving lectures in universities and writing constantly on it, attending the COP conferences all over the world. I was there in New York also 2 years ago. But like we'll discuss when all the panel is here, that just the conferences and the written policies, unless they are translated into action, it's no use going to the conferences and talking about stuff which will never translate into action. क्या ख्याल है परवेज साहब?
I fully agree. मेरा तो ख्याल यही है कि मतलब today I was being interviewed by Bloomberg. तो उसमें यही points ले रहे हैं इंडिया वाले जो हैं sitting in out of Delhi. तो यही पूछ रहे हैं कि जी everybody wants to help. They are all sympathetic, but the real question is what have you people been doing for the last 20-25 years? So I think that's a good question to ask. If you ask Sherry Rahman, what she would say is that लेकिन जी मेरी तो जो मिनिस्ट्री है ना इसका काम सिर्फ एडवोकेसी है, उसका ये काम है वो इम्पोर्टेंट है. तो वी स्टार्टेड ऑफ विद कॉप 15. मैंने उस वक्त जो है ना फॉर द फर्स्ट 5-6 कॉप्स आई नेगोशिएटेड द एडेप्टेशन ट्रैक. So it's a very uphill task. I mean, ये बड़ा easy है कहने के लिए. We'll get a lot of money from the Green Climate Fund. We'll get money from this. ये भी जो आकर आए हैं उसको कहते हैं सेक्रेटरी साहब आए हुए हैं. So they can be sympathetic to it, but the real question is pulling out money from people. And given the current environment, the political environment of uncertainty and the way a lot of people feel, I mean, whether that type of money will be put to good use, whatever comes in. So those are all questions which will revert back to you for governance, and those are the real core issues. And the other thing is, I think the statement that the Prime Minister made a couple of days ago that he wants a sustainable solution. The sustainable solution is not only rehabilitation, that's a small part of it. You have to go and think long term, and I can assure you one thing, that these floods will be there every 3rd to 5th year. It's no longer a long-term phenomenon. Yes, it's not going to be a long-term phenomenon. So you feel that, oh, 2010 में आ गया था, then it's not going to come back again. मैंने और हमने estimate इनको करके दिया था कि ये जो सा higher range जो थी 14.6 billion का होगा, जो upper बाउंड रखा था. नीचे वाला बाउंड 6.8 बिलियन का था कि जी इतना रफली जो सा ना लॉस होगा इसकी वजह से अगर फ्यूचर फ्लडिंग होती है. तो आई थिंक वी आर ऑन द वेरी लोअर साइड राइट नाउ. दे आर फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल दे वर पेगिंग इट टू 20 बिलियन. नाउ 2 दिन पहले ये कह रहे हैं कि जी इट्स गोइंग टू बी 30 बिलियन. दे रियली डोंट नो बिकॉज दिस फ्लड इज नॉट ओवर. दो अभी मैं नासा की जो सी ना वो देख रहा था, उसको कहते हैं अपना आई एम लुकिंग एट देयर इमेजरी, आई एम लुकिंग एट सम ऑफ द साइंस व्हिच इज देयर. We are not out of it yet. I mean, अभी ये जो बारिशें हो रही हैं, this can continue. Normally, the 15th September should be the end of it, but this can go to the first week of October. And if it goes to the first week of October, then इतना सारा moisture है ना, तो इसके अंदर जितनी बारिश होती है, तो वो तो ऐसे एटम बम की तरफ जो है ना, वो आपको हिट करती है, because there is no seepage into the soil. वो तो already जो है saturated है उसके अंदर तो आप और पानी डाल ही नहीं सकते. So I think this is more reflection which we need, and we need some actions. पिछले 10 दिन से यही काम हो रहा है टीवी के ऊपर सारा दिन के लिए. What are the actions? The actions are well known. We'll get into those well known actions. There's no new surprises in those actions.
ना मलिक ने हमें ज्वाइन किया. वो like to request her कि थोड़ा सा अपना इंट्रोडक्शन करा लें.
Hello everyone. Assalamu alaikum. I'm Amna Munawwar Awan. I am the president of Center of Pakistan and International Relations, and I'm thankful to all the worthy panelists and especially Ms. Momi who is here. And this is a very, very important and serious issue which we are going to discuss today. That is climate and environmental change in Pakistan. Climate change is a global challenge. We all know that, and Pakistan is highly vulnerable to this climate change, which has a significant impact on environment and people. We can see this in recent floods and its damages created national security emergency in Pakistan. Center of Pakistan and International Relations is working on national security as its focal area, emerging technology and sustainable development goals. So climate change is one of the important subject on which our research team is working on this subject for quite a long period of time. And I'm thankful to the worthy panelists because they are an expert in this field. And we are looking forward that how we can work together to make our nation resilient to handle these kind of crises which we are facing right now. And secondly, I ask all the worthy panelists that, and I request them to guide us that this, how we can manage this immediate and in future also we are expecting and perceiving such kind of threat of climate change in Pakistan, how the government should be prepared, how the civil society can play its role, and how the nation can manage it. Because we see the earthquake happened in Turkey, earthquake happened in Japan, but their governments are used to of handling those crises. So our government should also be prepared for this climate change, which is going to be one of the terrifying adversary for Pakistan at the moment and in future as well. So it is very important that we all should think about it, that how we can improve our condition, what should be the policy reforms at the government level, what should be done, should we go for some kind of national emergency in this subject, because not only this climate change impact on the environment and on the people, but it is also having an impact on the economy of Pakistan. So finally, I request my worthy panelists that Center of Pakistan and International Relations would like to work on a policy recommendation paper, which we are going to present to the Ministry of Climate Change. And I believe that this is an ongoing process. There are challenges and we need to address those challenges with the passage of time. So I welcome all of you over here, and I'm really interested to learn from the worthy speakers. So thank you very much, Momi, and thank you very much for the panelists.
So thank you, Amna, for inviting all the panelists and also myself. It's an important topic that Copair has taken up, and thank you for introduction as well of Copair. Of course, this is the right time that we should be discussing policy actions, policy solutions, as well as institutional arrangement that needs to be there, or maybe the implementation itself as to what we need to do. Because in Pakistan, I always say that we have a lot of good policies in place, but then with the change of government, we do not know where those policies go. The implementation becomes weak, things get derailed. But hopefully we will see a change in future with this democracy going forward for last at least 15 years now. So we hope that we will have some kind of positive change. So with
Momi,
this,
I have a question. Like, you are working on this issue. So what is your response to this, how Pakistan should address this issue, and, how you see it, because you are an environmentalist and you are working so hard on this subject. So how do you perceive it, the past situation, the current situation, and the future situation of Pakistan regarding climate change and environment?
Thank you, Amna. Amna has already introduced Copair, so I won't introduce Copair again, but just to say that they have recently launched the Center for Sustainable Development Goals, and their mandate is to kind of advocate policy on human security in Pakistan. Hence, today they have organized this discussion on climate and environmental changes in Pakistan, especially in the wake of climate change. Since you three are experts on the subject, which is, of course, Dr. Parvez Amir, he is associated to Global Water Partnership, and also that he has served at high level at the policy forums such as Task Force on Climate Change with previous governments, and he is a water expert. Then Ms. Noreen, of course, is also on the panel, who is the chairperson for Madadgar Trust and a climate activist who has contributed a lot in the discourse through her writings, as well as her capacity building endeavors with young people internationally as well as locally. Then we also have Dr. Saptar Sarfaraz, who is the chief meteorologist, PTM. So with this panel, we will be kind of discussing the issue of climate change, and especially what is happening right now in Pakistan. Without much ado, I will turn to our first speaker, Dr. Parvez. And sir, my question to you, and I think it is to the entire panel basically. Right now, whatever we are looking at, is this a governance issue? Is this a climate change issue? Is this both? And how is climate change related to governance? Does it really increase the risk of climate change impacts? And can we mitigate with better governance? So over to you, and then I would request the other speakers, worthy speakers, to also kind of dwell a little bit on that. Dr. Amir.
Start by saying that it's really both. It's climate change and it's governance, bad governance, it's mismanagement of water. I mean, that's the underlying factor. But I think the startup and the overwhelming kickoff is basically climate change. If you look at the data which Dr. Sarfraz will probably point out to you, if you look at Sindh, you have 780, I think it's 780% higher than the normal for July and August. So that's really overwhelming, 780% is a really large number. The difference between this time and 2010 is that Balochistan was not a part of that quagmire at that time. This time, Balochistan is very much kicked in, and Balochistan has suffered a lot in this whole thing. So that's as far as the climate change part goes. This year was not only phenomenal for this excess rain which you got, it's also phenomenal because of the temperature records which were broken for this year. The temperature records, the happenings on the glaciers, which some people will talk later. I think I just point that out. And I think even more important is the current state of economy of Pakistan. We have, even till yesterday, I've been saying this for the last 2 weeks, that your growth rate is going to come down to zero. It will come down to zero, or it will come down to negative. And we're pointing out that, look at your figures very carefully. You're talking in the ballpark of $20 billion plus. They started off with saying that, oh no, it's about 8 to 10 billion. Then you start adding to that. Then somebody was saying last week that it's 20 billion. And then now they're saying that it's 30 billion. Anybody who comes from abroad, this is a confused nation. They really don't know what they're talking about. And that confusion is not at one stage, it's across the board. You see that confusion across the board. The way we are responding to this whole thing, I think so, I will lay it out as a governance issue. It's not something new. The first climate change policy we started talking was in 1992. 1992, we came out with the first climate change policy. There's a draft for that. I might even have it somewhere. Then we progressed in, and then later on, I think Kamar Zaman Saab and Joy Saab and myself and a couple of others, yes, we put up a draft, which is on the climate change policy. That climate change policy basically is vulnerabilities, and it does not put a way forward for what Pakistan should have done. The lessons which were supposed to be learned from 2005, the earthquake, and 2010 floods. We put up an institution called the NDMA, which is basically there whenever there is a disaster, it's an institution which sort of comes up. It's not an institution designed to tackle climate change. And the fact of the matter is there is no institution existing in Pakistan right now which is mandated. They might be mandated with advocacy. They might be mandated with one or two oversight type of thing, but it's no mandate for taking care of climate change as a subject. And there I would underline that what you're facing is, if you look at the data, you look at where Pakistan stands, 135th in emissions, nowhere. I mean, you're a country which has less than 0.58% of the world's emissions. So you're really not the main contributor over there. When it comes to Pakistan bearing the brunt of climate change, yes, sometimes our number from German Watch and these other indexes comes to 5, sometimes it's 8. That's bogus. The reason is very simple. If you take the first 5 countries, you add up their population, Samoa, Fiji's, Maldives, they only add up to the population of Karachi. So Pakistan is not number 5th or number 8. Pakistan is at the forefront. And this, I think the Secretary UN was just here, and it's overwhelming. Everybody's overwhelmed with what is happening. And this is just a snapshot of what's coming forward. And I'd like to come back to say that governance, water management, they will be fundamental in our response. How we want to tailor ourselves for the future happenings. Do we sit back and say there's a heat wave and so many people die in Karachi or so many people die over there? Or we say that, oh, for all our urban, if you look at the situation right now, it's basically urban which has taken the brunt. Wherever the populations are high, that's where the problem is really picking up. And the glaring mistakes, I was on Bloomberg today for an interview on that, one of the more celebrated type of news outlets. India, even the countries around us in South Asia, everybody is worried. Pakistan is a test case. Where have we gone wrong? Why are we being put into this very, very terrible situation? And people are worried that could it next be India, which has a population 5 times us? Could it be Bangladesh? Could it be Europe? Pakistan is a test case, and I think you underline it that do you really have a strategy? And the way I look at, I don't think we have a strategy right now. We just don't have a strategy. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hamid. And I think you have really kind of highlighted the main issue, which is to say that we do not have the kind of institutional arrangements. I'll come back to you about the comment on the institutional arrangement, because the Ministry of Climate Change, for example, on their website says that their vision is to mainstream climate change in the economically and socially vulnerable sectors of the economy and to steer Pakistan towards climate resilient development. So I'm not sure if their vision and mandate actually aligns with the work they're doing right now. So thank you very much, Dr. Saab, for this very insightful answer. I would like to ask you, Ms. Noreen, how do you look at it? If you could quickly kind of, dwell a little bit on this, and then we'll take the discussion forward.
So first of all, I'd come to the questions that you put to us before the start of the session as to what are the reasons for this flood. Now, very briefly, when you compare these floods to the 2010 floods, I would briefly say that there is no comparison, because 2010 floods, although they were very massive, they were natural riverine floods. And they were 2010 flood was the flood in River Indus. So the riverine floods are very different. Riverine floods are not disasters. Riverine floods are a boon or a gift for the land. So we cannot say that the floods, the riverine floods, are something which have to be prevented. So, but what happened was that because of the excessive glacier melt, the volume in River Indus was higher than the usual annual flow, and because of that, River Indus became into super flood. So maximum capacity of water was flowing in River Indus, and that water had to be, in South Asia, since the colonial times, the biggest infrastructure that is built on any river is the River Indus. The infrastructure includes dams and barrages. So from the point where Indus enters main area of Pakistan to downstream Kotri, there are dams and barrages built on River Indus. Now, when there are barrages on the river and the river is in high flow, the water has to pass under the barrages through the gates. That gates and barrages were mismanaged. Because of the mismanagement, the River Indus, the flow in River Indus was disrupted to a point where the barrage gates were not fully open and the water was diverted at the point of Tonsa by mismanagement of water into the rural areas and into the cities. This was the 2010 floods. And there was a fact-finding commission made at the High Court level, and they published a report by the name of A Rude Awakening. One of my research papers was also included in that report, A Rude Awakening, because I went to Tonsa, I went to Muzaffargarh, I stayed there for a month, I collected the data that because of the mismanagement, and that report agrees to it, that water was diverted, so it was a man-made disaster. This flood, which we see in 2022, is not a riverine flood. Till today, all the rivers in Indus Basin are not in high flood. Just Indus from Tonsa downstream Kotri is in moderate to medium flood. Because I have seen Indus in high flood. When the Indus is declared in high or super flood, it can carry a load of 1 million cubics of water. But at the maximum height in these floods, the maximum volume of water that was flowing in Indus was anywhere between 500 to 550,000 cubics, which is almost half of what was flowing in 2010. The water that we see downstream Rajanpur is the water of the hill torrents Rodkoi, which came from Balochistan after creating havoc in Balochistan and joined and drained in the river Indus in south of Punjab. Now, I would just, for the sake of the listeners and whoever the listeners are later on, I would just ask a simple question. There are experts and meteorologists. Dr. Saab is sitting here. If there were no people, imagine a place where there were no people living in the villages or in the small towns there, and this much water had flown from the hill torrents and drained into river Indus, what would have happened? What would have happened? Nothing. The water would have flown in its natural course and it would have drained in river Indus like it has been doing for millions of years. So why this water created havoc this time? The water created havoc in towns and villages because it is not draining. The people are, the settlements are, the towns and villages are located in places which are the natural floodplains. They are sitting on the way of the river or the whole hill torrent. And there are settlements all over the place, from the places which were destroyed in Balochistan down to the south of Punjab, where nomadic populations had made villages, and the water was in such high volume that it could not drain into the two main drain canals, the Kutab, balki three main drain canals, the Kutab Canal, the Tayyab Canal, and the Bukhari Canal. What was supposed to happen was that the hill torrents would drain into these, would come into these three storm drains, and the storm drains would carry the water and drain it into river Indus after 120 kilometers. That did not happen. The drains were breached at various points. When the canal bunds breached, the water, of course, when it is breached, the canal is breached, it would go and enter into the villages. So what I mean to say is that our problem is that there is massive population, and the infrastructure that was built at a time to cater to the population of 20 million is now catering to the population of 220 million. The infrastructure is old. It was not meant to cater to the population that is now in Pakistan. The population, because of the lack of floods every year, because the high floods don't come every year, they have now settled in areas which are active flood fields, flood plains. And in the wake of the flood torrents and in the wake of, in the Kacha area of river Indus. So the cities and the towns were planned according to the population at that time. And now, as we have a population atomic bomb in Pakistan and people are everywhere, they have made these informal settlements. That is the reason that the flood waters, when they breached the canals, they entered into the settled areas and they washed away entire villages. As for the effects of climate change, yes, the climate change is the major factor, the emissions, but I would disagree with Dr. Saab when he says that the land is already saturated. What I have seen is that before the advent of the rains, in Balochistan, there was drought. Now the land in Balochistan was baked dry. Up to the depth of 20 feet, the single molecule of moisture present in the soil was evaporated. The land was as hard as clay, a baked clay. The rainwater did not penetrate into the soil. It slipped on the soil. So I would, before I give the solutions, and you would like to invite the second panelist, I'll come again. The land was unable to absorb rainwater. The land in Balochistan was baked dry and it was unable to soak up water. There was also no tree coverage. The trees are the natural storage. The trees provide natural storage in the land. So there was a wilderness and there was no tree coverage. And because of the massive deforestation, the trees could not hold water also. The delta is also damaged. Delta also breaks the spillage of the floods. So all of these natural ecosystems have been damaged by humans. This is an anthropological disaster, and the governance is that the government was, if you remember, by 14th August, when there were already a month and almost 2 months of rainfall and floods in Balochistan, the government was celebrating Independence Day, and they were busy in dancing and frivolous activities, and they did not realize that the water was rushing towards Punjab. It was only when in KPK the hotels started breaking and the videos were more enjoyable. Sorry to use the word. The videos were more spectacular, that the attention was diverted towards, okay, now there is a flood.
But I think you really hinted on some of the important governance issues, which is infrastructure and also population expansion. However, I would like to now turn towards Dr. Sarfaraz to kind of ask him whether the government, whether this was something that the government was aware of. And we know, of course, Sherry Rahman 2 months ago said that we will be facing such a flood. But what was missing? What was missing link? Was it the lack of coordination between different ministries and the government departments? Was it lack of preparation? We didn't have the kind of infrastructure in place, or was it misreading? What was it that, if we were aware of this challenge, which by the statement of the minister says that we were, but could you maybe shed light on that? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bismillah Rahman Rahim. For inviting me to this important webinar. I'm not an expert of climate and meteorology. I'm just a student of climate. But this year, yes, from the May onwards, we have been pointing out that this year is going to have surplus rain, excess rains, because the monsoon rains in Pakistan and in South Asia are, they have some sort of teleconnection with Pacific Ocean temperatures, with the Indian Ocean temperatures. And the Dr. Parvez Sahib has pointed out that we have been witnessing a very severe heat wave this year from March up to mid of June. Actually, at least 3 to 4 were the severe heat wave episodes. So that also contributes to towards the coming monsoon season, actually, because the synoptically, when we observe that the seasonal low or heat low which is formed over south of Pakistan, that also actually causes a lot of pulling of moisture both from Bay of Bengal and Arabian Sea. So that has caused also enormous contribution to the excess monsoon rains. So it was a surplus year. We have given for our forecast. PMD has given its forecast with this start of the June, and before that, actually, we have another forum, SASCOF, South Asian Climate Outlook Forum. So whereby the whole South Asian nations meet together and they issue the combined forecast for South Asia. So in that, that was released in the first week of May. So in that report, it was also pointed out that this year is going to, a lot of monsoon rains are going to happen. And pointedly, it was pointed out that especially the southern Pakistan, for example, I should specify that the western Sindh and the adjoining Balochistan, this is the area, this is the pocket which is going to have more surplus rains. And as Dr. Saab has pointed out that it was extraordinary rains. For example, in July, we have faced 181% above than average. Similarly, August was even more harsh. It came out to be 243% across all Pakistan. And till today, if we talk about the average, above average, so it is still, I think, it comes out to be 186% above normal rain as compared to, I can recall that Pakistan area, area weighted average rainfall for the whole monsoon month is around 141 millimeter. But as of today, we have received 380 millimeter if we if we make it average across whole Pakistan as an area weighted average. So it's a lot more than the average. And if we talk about the provinces, at provinces level, Balochistan has received 450% more than its normal or average. Similarly, Sindh was over 300%. And in the month of July, and then in the August, it was even more severe situation that Balochistan has got 590% more than average. Similarly, Sindh got above 720% above normal. So these are the figures actually which are quite, unprecedented type of figures which we have witnessed this year. And ultimately, your finger raised towards the, as Dr. Saab has mentioned, towards the climate change. Actually, before we have faced such a, as the madam has pointed out, that in 2010 it was a riverine flood, but this year it was not riverine flood, it was rain flood actually, because you have no drainage system in your, in at least in these two provinces, in Sindh and Balochistan. You don't have any drainage system, so whatever the amount of rain falls down from the sky, that is actually the water gets accumulated. So we have been hearing about the LBOD and sort of those things, but I was present the other day in the meeting, and the provincial authorities were complaining about the LBOD. They were pointing out that it is the most failed project, and it is not contributing anything towards the draining out of the rainwaters. So that is the problem actually, as Dr. Saab has mentioned, that if we are not going to tackle the climate change, as he has rightly pointed out, that Pakistan contribution is just 0.8%, 0.6 to 0.8% in GHG's emission. But still we stand in 10 most affected countries for the years and years. Before we were at 5 number, and nowadays we are standing at 8 number, I think. And similarly, in my own study, we have studied that as we know that the climate change is induced by global warming, and global warming means that since pre-industrial era, the global temperature has risen by 1.1 degrees C. So we can imagine that with 1.1 degrees C rise, we are facing with so much, calamities, climate calamities. So just think that if we, in coming years, if we reach up to 1.5 degrees C above pre-industrial era, or 2 degrees C above this industrial era, so what is going to happen? It is quite frightening. And similarly, Pakistan temperatures also have risen by, not beyond the global temperature rise, but just catching up that figure. I think 0.85, if I remember correctly, 0.85 degrees C Pakistan, on average, Pakistan temperature has also risen. And we have recently analyzed the 56 stations of the Pakistan, and out of 56 stations, 28 or 30 stations are such stations whose maximum temperature, whose night temperature, whose daytime temperature, whose night temperatures have been on rise. And it is a significant, statistically proven significant rise. So that is actually, as Madam has pointed out, that number of factors are contributing towards it, our population and the deforestation and climate change, etc., etc. So these are the figures actually which are quite, alarming for us. So it's now the climate change and the current scenario, and in future, and all you learned people might be knowing that IPCC, which has published six assessment reports. So in recent their AR6, they said that with climate change, the frequency of extreme events we mean flood, we mean drought, we mean heat wave, we mean cyclones, hurricanes, and Gulf also. And incidentally, I can recall that this year we we have faced around 30 Gulf events in our GB and KP in our hilly areas. So usually 10 to 15 events. In previous years, we have been facing 10 to 15 events of Gulf, but this year we have faced 30 events of Gulf. So that is another alarming and dangerous, indication of what is going to happen in, with the so frequent Gulf events. Your population is in danger. The infrastructure, livestock, everything which comes in the way of the Gulf, that is being washed out. So it is now becoming, unfortunately, an existential type of matter for Pakistan with this scenario of climate change.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sarfaraz. And I think you really hinted towards how Pakistan is not prepared. And also Pakistan is faced with more vulnerability even within the region. So this takes me to Dr. Parvez. Dr. Parvez, could you, given that we are not prepared at home, and given that we are vulnerable, and vulnerability is defined by preparedness as well. So do you think what kind of case can be built globally? Because many people are talking about reparation, compensation, rather than actually calling it aid that we are getting from, global level. So what do you think? Is there a way for us to kind of tap into some kind of, or maybe changing the framework, changing the narrative? But what is it that we can do beyond GCF and adaptation funds that are available for developing countries to kind of adapt and mitigate? But what can we do? I mean, right now, can we go to ICJ, for example? What kind of measures do we need to take, or what kind of advocacy do we need to do at global level in order to deal with it, especially when we are not prepared at home? Ms. Noreen, thank you very much for joining.
And thank you, Amna, for inviting. And Dr. We'll keep in touch. Dr. Sarfaraz, thank you very much.
I'd just like to respond earlier what I had said about the saturation point. The first 2 months, July and August, that's when you got the floods. I'm not saying that the floods were not, that the land was not dry, it was not baked up. Yes, that was the situation. What I'm saying is that any further rains which you get now, there is no absorptive capacity. If you look at the 100 kilometers lake which has been created on the right side of Sakhar, or in some parts of Balochistan, that there is absolutely no capacity within the soil to absorb further water. And I will also add that this is very closely linked to your economic situation. If the fuel price of diesel was around 150 rupees, lot of the land would have been plowed, lot of the water would have found seepage over there. Because the price of fuel is so high, no farmer is willing to take his tractor and plow that land. That is one of the other factors, that everybody is just sitting back and watching because of the economic situation. So it's all interlinked. Now coming to your question, I've been pondering with this for several years, for the last maybe 10, 12 years, and we've made a very strong case and all that. We started off with saying that, oh, we are not responsible, you are responsible. So the West, the United States, you should come up and you should pay for the adaptation cost. That does not cut much ice, and it's not going to cut much ice either. What we are given is candies. We were told that, oh, it's good, that Japanese were telling us that, well, it's fine, what you can do is you can buy these vouchers or quotas, for the CDMs. You do that, you do some good. We have already developed, we have no problems. We can just help you out that you buy it. And there was a big rush that, oh, Pakistan is going to put this small project. So we were into that game. Then we came up with a terminology of particularly vulnerable countries. That was new. I was part of that. We tried to tow with that in COP 16, 17, and 18. It went in for 2-3 years. Then Pakistan was kicked out of that. They said, no, you're a middle-income country, you're not the lowest country. And Bangladesh was able to really forcefully put an argument there. Maldives saying, with Rashid there, their president, they said, that has some ice. But okay, but that ice means that they get some preference when it comes to funding from the GCF. They get some preference there. They also do world-class proposals. Your main problem, even today and tomorrow, to go into the market for money is writing decent proposals. Pakistan simply just doesn't have the ability. We have Farooq over there, who was very big into this climate fund, and now he's probably sitting somewhere in New York or in Geneva. What did we get? We put up our best man, but we didn't get much money. $4 million. It's peanuts, as Ziaul Haq would say. It's peanuts. Too much buying into that track that, okay, there'll be sympathy for us, I don't think that's going to cut us. The new things which are coming up, and I think those are the avenues which we can explore. Number one, which the Secretary United Nations said, yes, is bartering some way to reduce your debt. It's a legitimate case where you can go to the World Bank, you can go to IMF, you can go to an umpteen number of bilateral donors, and you can say, look here, you are one of the main reasons for this problem. It is none of our fault. We are not saying that you write off all our debt. All we are saying is that where infrastructure has been cut off, World Bank comes first. This LBOD, we are all critical of this project. We have been telling them from a long time that both your projects, RBOD and LBOD, they are failure projects. Why should Pakistan have to pay this very heavy loan of 2 to 3 billion US dollars on that? That's a good question. That's a legitimate way of arguing. You go to the ADB and you say, sir, look here, look at us. We are going to be negative. Any idiot sitting in the Ministry of Planning, which is telling you that you will have a positive economic growth rate, is out of his mind. You're going to have a negative growth rate of maybe -2. Your agriculture will go down by 40% minimum. You're going to be facing a major food security crisis. You're already importing 5 to 7 million tons of wheat right now. What you're going to do is, we're all saying that one of our prime ministers actually saying that, oh, it's very good for Pakistan, you know, that we'll get more moisture. You will get more moisture if that land dries up. If it doesn't dry up, you know, where are you going to put your wheat? Wheat is coming October, November, that's when we start planting wheat. So very realistically, Pakistan is going to face a major crisis on the food security side. And that's already showing up. Major crisis on the inflationary side. We should go back to these donors, go into a consortium mode, build a case based on science-based data. Just by Ministry of Reform saying that, oh, it's 10 billion, it's 20 billion, it's 30 billion, that doesn't cut any ice in the international market. You know, you build up a strong case with data, then look, this is what we are facing. I am very confident that that case, I think the start off has been already made by the Secretary from United Nations. He's made that univocal statement. Pakistan should take a lead at that. We should go to the donors. We should go to our Arabian donors. We should go and we should ask for some delayed payments. Where we can negotiate for delayed payments, let's do that one. Where we can ask for outright write-off, we should do for that. Number 3, this money which is already pouring in, it's not in big amounts, it's pouring in. We should have to demonstrate to the world that this money is not only going to go for relief or is not going to go into the exchequer to show that our balance of payment is improving. This money is going to go into legitimate infrastructure development, into governance, into those things where we can ensure that Pakistan is going to be more ready to face these types of situations. As I said earlier, 3 to 5 years, every 3rd, 5th year, you're going to face this music. The other point, which is that, or it's a rivarian versus this flood. No, the case is very solid. Yes, rainfall will come. It will. China is telling we will have that. This rainfall. That's God mercy. You know, we cannot control it. The fact of the matter is that what is happening on Swat River, what is happening from Kabul, that is the one which is creating that 6-7 million acre foot of push. If you have rainfall already starting, and then you have this push of 6-7 million, these dadus, these Manchar lakes, they are going to be overwhelmed. They're going to be overwhelmed below at Kotri. They're going to be overwhelmed at Sakhar. They're going to be overwhelmed in that particular region. So that infrastructure, which is vital, and I say it again, we have to ask money for vital infrastructures. We are not going to go and beg. The dams, some of the structures for dams, for your barrages, for your diversions. The other thing is making use of this money. As I was saying earlier, look here, if I go to the World Bank, if I go abroad, they're saying you wasted 55 billion US dollars worth of water. Why are you coming to us and you're telling us that, oh, you're dying, you're a country who's very big, you know, you are great people, you are all of our people, metropolitan type of people who are sitting there, they are all know-alls. They said, we already know the solutions. You have to come out and make it very simple that, look, we will do the essential infrastructure, we'll do the essential reforms. These essential reforms, very clearly, you don't put hotels on the Swat River. 3 billion rupees worth of gratification were taken for that. Every second day you say that we protect it. It looks very nice. This scenic view, you know, we love Hunza, we love the Atabad. You don't do that. You don't go into nature's way of harm. You don't do that. Whereas when you come to the lower reaches on the Indus, people will continue to do it, regardless what I say or you say. The reason is simple, that land is free. The property rights are very clear, it's free land. Normally what people do, they make houses on the embankments and they till that type of land. The riverian belt is still over. If you go to Tigris, you go to Mesopotamia civilization, everybody does that. That's nothing new. But what we do is, because that land is free, we don't have anywhere else to go. We go and make our boards also in that particular land. So I think the case is there for Pakistan, a case of reflection, a case of urgency. The most important point is urgency. Pakistan needs to take actions very urgently. It has to go not with a begging bowl, but with a logically sought out proposal, science-based proposal that, look, we are here. We are going to compete with Bangladesh. We're going to compete with others. We're going to make a case on that. If you don't do that, just going and making speeches in the United Nations or here and there, this will weather out in another week or so or 10 days, then it's all gone with the wind. Sorry for some of these tough realities.
No, Dr. Parvez, I mean, this was music to my ears as somebody who is a passionate environmentalist. I mean, I think you've really raised some of the very important questions within your answer, where you're really talking about where this money is going to be used. We have to demonstrate to the world, especially because every time they come with help does not mean that we just use this for management. And then again, only we can build this case with enhanced capacities within the country, which unfortunately we lack. And those who, people like you or others who should be at the forefront, somehow I also kind of see at times governments fail to kind of also tap into their own expertise and experts who are out there to kind of, really take this forward. So Ms. Noreen, I mean, we are heading towards anyway end of the session. And before I also ask Dr. Sarfaraz, I would like to kind of ask you, what are some of the solutions apart from what Dr. Saab said? Of course, right now we have some model underground water recharge wells, for example, that have been put together by WWF, IWMI, and many other organizations that have come together in Islamabad, in Punjab. Do you think such infrastructures can help us mitigate the magnitude of the flood, even if it is due to rainfall and due to the climate change and high temperatures? And the second question I would like you to kind of also answer as part of the solution is, we have 62% of young people, and I understand that you build capacity of young people. How do you see, what are we doing to our young people? They are the ones who are going to face the brunt. They are the ones who are an opportunity, but are we investing enough? So these two questions, if you could dwell on this. Thank you.
So that Dr. Sarfraz can join in, and then I will beg leave. To the first question, like Dr. Parvez has already explained a lot, there are different kinds of floods, and this year there were three or four distinct kind of floods that were happening simultaneously. Like Dr. Sarfraz has just mentioned the GLOF phenomena. One of the floods is, which we've seen earlier this year is, and also last year, was the GLOF phenomena. We need a different kind of attitude for combating the GLOF floods that are also flash floods and very dangerous. They are killers, and they don't spare anyone or anything in their way. The second type is riverine flood, which Dr. Parvez was talking about, and that is to take care of the barrages and make sure that they are working to their optimum. It's not that if there are 100 gates in one barrage and only 20 gates are non-functional and there are only 50 or 60 or 70 gates that are fully operational, then it means that when the river comes in moderate to high flood, you are not allowing it to pass through the barrages. You are hampering its flow. So what you do is you just have to pull down both the sides of the barrages and divert the waters. That is the second infrastructure development that would sort of control or mitigate the maximum damages. The third is the urban flooding you are asking about, which happened in Quetta and Karachi, and of course in Jamshoro also. Now in Karachi, it has been talked about a lot of times, and we've been talking about it since 2013 or 14 when we saw the urban flooding in Karachi. In Karachi, the drainage is the main problem because all the natural drains, the storm drains, are encroached upon. The Malir Nadi, the Kharada drain, all these drains that are supposed to take the storm water and drain it into the sea are encroached upon. So the only way people would be able to survive urban flooding safely and make safe their homes and their property is that you have to let the waters flow. You have to let the rivers flow. You have to let the hill torrents flow. No amount of infrastructure in the whole world will be able to save the floods. Not even the Yangtze River, not even the Yangtze, the three gorges on the Yangtze River can save it from flooding. So there was flooding in the Yangtze River also, although there is the world's biggest dam built on the three gorges. So what I mean to say is we have to respect the rivers. We have to respect the rights of rivers and let the rivers flow. We have to get out of their way. We have to make sure that the natural drainage routes of the rivers and hill torrents are not encroached upon, and they can safely pass through the land, through the plain. And as for Dr. Sahab, I totally agree. LBOD and RBOD are development disasters. The flooding that we see in Sindh is development induced. It is not natural. LBOD is actually bringing the sea water into inland. So it's working in reverse. RBOD to pehle kharab thi, but LBOD is now working in reverse. So instead of draining the water from the land into the sea, it is bringing water from the sea into the land. So we have to go to the World Bank and say that this is your disaster. You are responsible for it. Neither are we going to pay for it, but we need reparations for that. We need you to pay us because of the suffering. And as for the youth of Pakistan, as you have said, look, no amount of youth, even if it is in millions, can do anything if it is uneducated and unskilled. Just youth would just be a burden on the economy of Pakistan if we continue to ignore them the way the government is ignoring them. So they have to be, the people have to, the government has to make sure that the people have to increase their resilience through better education, through alternate means of livelihood, through better social security nets, through education, through better healthcare. All these measures have to be taken to increase the resilience of people. If people are resilient, look, the same storms did not affect you. It did not affect me. It did not affect Dr. Sarfraz. It did not affect Dr. Parvez. Why is the poor person suffering when in the same area, the rich person, despite the same flood affecting the land, he's not bothered. He's not damaged. His property is not damaged. His cars are not damaged. His children are not in danger because he has resilience.
Dr. Sarfraz and Dr. Parvez, I'll also kind of, after asking Dr. Sarfraz, we'll just take another 5 minutes and we'll close the session. Dr. Sarfraz, I just wanted to ask you also about solutions, especially because I feel that at times, even if you were informing, is there a coordination gap at government level? Is there a what one thing would you tell me which actually does not really which becomes an issue when it comes to dealing with disasters or dealing with issues pertaining to climate change or others?
Well, I think there is some coordination. There is mechanism that Met Office or PMD, when it sees the disasters coming in the form of some climate, we are going to inform the authorities. We inform them, but sometimes that warning, that advisory, and that sort of it's not given due priority. Actually, this is the issue actually. So once we issued a seasonal forecast in the month of May, that the authorities responsible should have hold the joint meeting, and threadbare discussion should have been there. That okay, you are saying that above normal precipitation is going to happen this year. So tell us, specifically tell us which areas are going to be more affected, which areas are going to be more, to be taken care of. So these sort of discussions, I think they were lacking at this time. And secondly, as Dr. Saab has pointed out rightly earlier, that you don't have the infrastructure actually, basically, to sustain such type of harsh weather events. Unless you promote your, the infrastructure, and you develop your resilience infrastructure, you can't do anything. For example, I live in Karachi. For my whole service, 30 to 32 years I have spent in Karachi, and believe me that 50 to 60 millimeter is not a big amount of rain, just 2 inches of the rainfall. Millimeter of rain falls in Karachi within half an hour. It just chokes this city. So that is what actually the lacking of proper infrastructure. So I'm not the town planner, I'm not the expert in that field, but at least over the period of time, what we have been listening from the experts and what we have been hearing from the other experts. So these are the things which are to be given now due priority. And as I earlier said, that it is now the matter of existential matter of Pakistan. So to combating and to adapting this climate change. Otherwise, every now and then, you just see in 2010 we have faced such a big disaster, and after 12 years we are still standing at that point. We have not developed. No resilient has been done. So that is what ends.
Yeah. Dr. Sarfraz, you hinted towards the thing, like, you really said that the priorities are there. So is consortium led, as Dr. Parvez also said, even at national level, do we have to have a consortium led approach where different actors come together and they don't just meet when flood happens, but also for the preparation?
Exactly.
Okay, thank you very much. Amna, over to you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Parvez. Thank you very much, Dr. Sarfraz. Very enlightened discussion. And I believe that we all are Pakistani, and this is the right time that we should join hands together. And I think sometimes the civil society can play a very important role, and I think they play an important role. Your vision, your advice, I think we should try to address to the government institutions and the policy makers so that they should improve their policy reforms, because all the issues which you discussed, they are the issues of the policy and implementation and weak institutionalization. So I think we should join hands together and let's try to build a strong Pakistan. So thank you very much, everybody, and looking forward that we coordinate in future as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Amna. Thank you, Dr. Parvez. Thank you, Dr. Sarfraz.